Bong Joon Ho's latest film, Mickey 17, despite being a completely different genre and aesthetic from his previous critically acclaimed Parasite, undoubtedly grapples with the same issues and criticises the same things. Capitalism, baby! Except this time, we're on a spaceship with surprisingly spacious rooms. Mickey 17 follows Mickey Barnes, a man desperate to escape loan sharks back on Earth. In his search for a way out, he signs up to become an expendable on the frontier, a huge spaceship on its 4-year voyage to a new planet called Niflheim. Led by a failed politician, Kenneth and his ever-present wife, Yifla, the Expendables Programme, which is banned on Earth, exploits cloning technology, allowing Mickey to be killed and reprinted again and again to perform dangerous tasks. I have gone to the cinema not once, not twice, but 3 times, once even in IMAX, to bring you this video essay on how Mickey 17 critiques the power and class structures that even when trying to escape Earth to some far galaxy are inescapable. Specifically, I will analyse the Expendables Programme, Kenneth's hypocrisy, the role of the creepers, the loan sharks back on Earth, and the question you've all been wondering: why the hell is that woman going on about sauce all the time? Spoilers ahead, be warned. If you haven't seen this movie, you should definitely go and see it, but you don't need to go as many times as I did. The Expendables Programme is what Mickey signs up for to get onto the ship in the first place. And he is the only one to do so, despite there being so many people who are so desperate for a spot on the frontier. In this role, as I said, he is used for a wide variety of medical and scientific experiments, like the effects of outer space radiation, and most vital to the plot, they use multiple Mickeys to purposely get infected by whatever disease is on this new planet in order to make a vaccine. Despite all these scientific discoveries coming from Mickey's many, many sacrifices, others devalue his labour and really look down upon him. This is so deeply ironic since without him, they wouldn't even been able to step foot on Niflheim, let alone create a whole new civilization. Not only is his work devalued, but so is his body. Since he can be reprinted, he is expected to die in the place of other people, like Jennifer on that first expedition. And if he's being even slightly inconvenient, people like Kenneth have no problem just shooting him in the head, as seen when they give him that experimental painkiller that does not work at all in that dinner scene. He is no longer seen as a human being. He is just a pile of bones, meat and skin. They tell him that he signed up for it, so he really can't complain. Which I feel like symbolises those who take on jobs that no one wants because they are desperate for money that they need to survive, and then are exploited and told to just suck it up. You signed up for this knowing the conditions. How dare you try and change it for the better? Kenneth Marshall's space program as a whole is just incredibly exploitative. He's taking advantage of not only his fanatic supporters, but also those desperate for a job or an income in order to further his ego and his image. There is no better way to get someone to do something that they normally wouldn't do than money. Everything he does has to be filmed or broadcasted. He failed to get power back on Earth, so he uses this influence that he has to gain power and control outside of Earth instead. For example, he on the ship has created his own media ecosystem completely centered around himself. He basically said, if I can't have power and control in this society, I will just create my own. He's even convinced to go out to all the stampeding creepers, putting his life at risk, which does kill him in the end. Spoilers! I did tell you. Just to make this big speech and to film it. His role as the supreme leader of the ship is entirely a performance. He doesn't really want to lead a nation or society, he wants notoriety. He wants to be a personality and a name that everyone will know. The persona that he puts on when he's in front of the ship inhabitants is as fake as those top teeth. They're so creepy. Kenneth's very strong hypocrisy is also used to critique power structures, specifically those of populist leaders with those big personalities. I remember in an interview reading that the director of the film said that Kenneth isn't really referencing one leader, but that everyone can find something in Kenneth that they can relate to these kind of leaders in their own country. Although I'm not American, I really see Donald Trump than Kenneth Marshall. And the fact that the actor Mark Ruffalo, he's American, I think really just backs up my assumption. But I guess he really could be anyone. Maybe he's a spitting image of some politician, I don't know, fucking Laos or something. I don't know. One way we can see this hypocrisy is in the adoption of the cloning technology in the first place. At this hearing discussing the ethics of the cloning technology, Kenneth states that it's sinful, against God, but still then suggests using it for his own ship. How can something be so against God, so sinful, but if it benefits you, then well, it's okay. Interestingly, when he talks about who is funding this voyage, he mentions this church before quickly saying, no, it's a company. So clearly some religious organization is fine with this cloning technology, but they don't really want people to know that. I think this is referencing those religious figures who say one thing and then do another. Or like those crazy like mega church pastors in the US who like say, God wanted me to buy the private jet. Think about all those people who talk about the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman and all that bullshit and push these traditional nuclear family values. You know, all that multiculturalism has failed, but then marries a non-white immigrant and has like 12 children to 5 different women outside of marriage. Also, something I wanted to add is Kenneth really stresses that he really loves that this planet is white. It's white, it's pure, it's virgin. And I mean, he like really loves mentioning this. I wonder what that's supposed to symbolize. I don't know. It could be anything. Speaking of tradition and stuff like that, Kenneth mentions a few times that he likes real meat and real natural childbirth and none of that artificial stuff. But this belief is clearly not consistent. I don't think cloning someone to experiment on them is really that natural. Neither is colonizing a planet, neither is using a toxic gas to murder them all, and neither are those goddamn teeth. So creepy. The scene where they slice it open, that big rock, also really helps to show Kenneth's hypocrisy. It's Mickey 18 that tries to assassinate him at this gathering, but he shoots the rock instead. He misses because someone hits his arm up. And Kenneth is not happy about this. He basically scolds Mickey, you know, saying like, how dare you damage this beautiful rock. But then when he wants the baby creeper, who is the native species of the planet, gone, he wants it dead, he has no problem with multiple people shooting right at the rock, damaging it even more, just, you know, it's because that's what he wants, because he's labeled those creepers as a threat, which we will talk about in a second. Foreshadowing. Obviously, all of these bullets cause significantly more damage than what Mickey did, but since it's Kenneth that ordered it for his own gain, there's no problem in his eyes. Pretty hypocritical if you ask me. As mentioned, the so-called creepers, as Kenneth names them, play a vital role in the film, specifically in its criticism of colonialism and racism. Apart from the opening scene with Mickey lying down in that snowy cave, the first interaction that the humans have with these creatures is in that very cave with 3 others. The creepers, when they see the humans, clearly are frightened, they feel threatened. You know, they seem to be the only other animal on the planet, so this is they're brand new to them. And in this terror, one of the babies bites the clothes of one of the humans. Not their skin, but their clothes. And they all just open fire. This is a huge escalation, obviously. They are so happy just to shoot these creatures, having no regard for the fact that they are living, breathing animals of some kind. And this lack of empathy is what leads to Jennifer's death, as she sees one of the babies and just haphazardly shoots above her where she sees it, and all the rocks come down, crushing her. After really analysing this film and seeing it too many times, it is really hard to have sympathy for her at all. She has no care in just murdering the native species of this planet and just damaging their home, so I think her death is karma. It's karma, bitch. When Kenneth and Yifla finally see the footage of the creepers for the first time, he says that they must, crave human flesh and blood. Even though when Mickey was on the brink of death, they never even attacked him. They didn't even pierce any skin. Kenneth just needs to portray these animals as an enemy and is dangerous to convince all his passengers that killing them is justified and that they're just out to destroy humans, even if there is no evidence of such. So he has to bake this prejudice into the naming of the creatures as well, hence the name Creepers. And not the Minecraft kind. That film's not come out yet, but my ticket is booked, I tell you. I am sat. I love you, mumbo jumbo. If things went Kenneth's way, no one on the ship would have really have seen the creepers, or very few. So he has full control of the narrative on them, not just because he is the leader, but also he has, he created the media ecosystem on the ship itself. His fanatics, who heavily populate the ship, as seen in that first dinner scene when he enters the dinner hall. They're all standing and cheering. They will believe anything he says. And he knows this. This is just the power he so desires. I definitely think that this demonization of the creepers is a reference to how these racist, right-wing figures talk about immigrants, and just like most other minority groups. Think about how these kind of people have been demonizing trans people, describing them as predators, and people just believe that. Most people, especially these older people who live in very rural, very conservative communities, I doubt they've ever actually met a trans person. So there's no one there to really question their beliefs. They can't they've never really just like talked to someone. And these influencers and these politicians, they know that. And they know that they can label them however they want without much rebuttal from their supporters. This also then links back to Kenneth's hypocrisy, since he is labeling them as creepy, but in reality it is Kenneth who is the real creep. When he talks to Kai, inviting her to be part of his natural birthing program, that gave me the ick. That was very weird. That was creepy. He is the creeper. Something also of note in regards to the creepers is that one of the scientists ends up developing a translator so that they can communicate with the creepers, which is obviously a huge technological breakthrough, even with all these 32K cameras and glasses that they have in this alternate universe. Also, are they like doctors or scientists? They just seem to do a lot of stuff. But Kenneth couldn't really care less about this translator. Negotiation was never the goal. The colonists have no empathy or interest in coexistence. Kenneth's only aim is to become the supreme leader of a colony, power he could never achieve back on Earth. Although this is a smaller point, I also want to mention the loan sharks that we see in those flashbacks with Mickey and Timo's time back on Earth. They take out a loan in order to start a macaron business, which doesn't take off. They then can't pay the loan sharks back and are kidnapped and threatened by them. And by threatened I mean they're going to kill them. The reason why any of the events in the film happen in the first place is because of this plot point. They say that they will follow them to the ends of the earth to get their money back. And the two friends, they take this very literally by becoming workers on a space voyage, literally past the ends of the earth. We then learn near the end of the film that someone followed them onto the ship to continue to threaten them. So them abandoning their lives, leaving, their planet of birth, was really all for nothing. This just shows how inescapable capitalism is. No matter how far you run, it will find you. The loan sharks, I think, also show the reality of capitalism in two ways. Firstly, how for many people, it isn't really about money, but power. The leader of the loan sharks, called Darius Blank, is said to not really even need the money. He just wants to see people essentially killed in various ways. He films it. He gets off to that stuff. He's also a creep, and it just shows how much he enjoys and revels in the power that he has as a rich man. Secondly, it shows the promise that capitalism brings, but also the common reality of that. These two young men start a business that they seem somewhat passionate about, believing that they can serve their community with delicious macarons. But it fails, like many small businesses. And in Mickey's case, he instead becomes a devalued worker abused by the system. All I'm saying is, I would have bought their macarons. I'm a Robert Pattinson fan. What can I say? The last thing I want to discuss is why Yifla won't shut the hell up about that sauce. This confused me after first watching it, but then it hit me, and it all made sense. My theory is that it has something to do with the fact that sauce masks the real taste of a meal, or a dish, or a piece of food. You might hate a food, but if you smother it in enough ketchup, you'll probably eat it. That's if you like ketchup. It's almost a distraction to the real truth of the meal. I feel like you could apply this to so many different things that the film criticizes. Maybe it's commenting on Kenneth Marshall's persona. He says everything that his supporters want to hear, but in reality he's an evil, egotistical maniac. Think about how he acts during any speech he has to the people on the ship, like when they first land on the planet. And then compare that to how he acts in the final act of the film in that military uniform with his hair scraped back, and the way he speaks to Nasha and Mickey and so on. He is like a completely different person in that sequence. The sauce probably, as I said, comments on other things, but this is what came to my mind first. The metaphor may seem strange at first, but when you think about it, it's the perfect metaphor for how leaders cover up their corruption with charm and distraction. If there's one thing that Mickey 17 makes painfully clear, it's that power, greed, and exploitation are as inevitable as gravity, even in the vastness of space. Through my analysis of the Expendables Programme, Kenneth's hypocrisy, the demonisation of the creepers, the loan sharks, and the sauce metaphor, I hope that you can better appreciate the film and understand how it presents our own society's problems, even in this sci-fi setting. I've seen so many people say that the themes in this film are too obvious, but even if that's true, does that really have to be a bad thing? Hot take incoming, but I don't think that class and power structures have to be hidden behind really complicated cinematic techniques in 4-hour Slovenian art house films that cost £50 to buy on DVD. If Mickey 17's themes seem obvious, maybe that's the point. Some truths are just so urgent that they can't be hidden away. They should be more accessible. Just like Mickey's endless cycle of births and rebirths, these struggles persist, but that doesn't mean that they can't be challenged. If anything, Mickey 17 reminds us that these power dynamics aren't just science fiction. They shape how our world works every single day. Today.